Do you have an interest in architecture? Do you know nothing about architecture but enjoy watching grainy videos scrappily put together by a white t-shirt wearing nerd who doesn't seem to know how to break up sentences into smaller pieces? Then this video is for you. I'm Andrew Morrison and I'm an architecture graduate from the University of Cincinnati. This is the first video of a series I'm doing on my thoughts about architecture. Each video of the series I'll talk about my thoughts on a specific aspect of architectural design. These are design principles that I feel very passionate about and I would love to discuss with you all. I'm very passionate about architecture and design. There are a lot of very valuable lessons and principles I've learned about in my time in college and in the field. And the more designers and architects think about these things, I think the better our buildings will be and therefore the higher quality of life we will all experience. Today's video is honesty of material. Honesty in this context to me means presenting something as what it is. And it's about bringing to light the inherent value in something that otherwise might be underwhelming. In this case, building materials. When it comes to architecture, transparency and simplicity are a couple things that I always try to keep in mind. In other words, architecturally telling the truth. The materiality of a building isn't something you should have to hide. Like, there's inherent beauty in unrefined wood and stone and metal and earth. And in my experience, adding things like veneers and coverings just detracts from the impact that a building can have. As Mies van der Rohe said, less is more. Raw material also engages the senses, and it can awaken in us that deep connection that we have as humans to this planet. But more important is utilizing the inherent capabilities of each material. The closer you're using the material to its natural form, the less you'll have to add to or modify it. As Louis Sullivan said, form follows function. When the material is used functionally as it should be, and not just for aesthetic or sculpture, then in my eyes, that's success. Sometimes it's difficult to imagine how this sort of thing can be implemented when we've been around the same few types of buildings our whole lives. So let's start with something familiar, the typical office building. Things like industrial drywall and ceiling tile grids and vinyl flooring just suck. The artificial manufactured feel to them just drains the life out of a space. I've worked in offices without those things and I've worked in offices with them, and I would choose without them every single time. But they're cheap solutions, and so they're ubiquitous. And when your building is designed with these bland solutions, it can make additional embellishment and decoration feel necessary just to tolerate being in that space. Authentic material is something that's always wished for, but often just ends up being faked. Like interior designers have to end up resorting to nice stone veneers or wood texture wall coverings, and the superficiality of that just, it lets down the occupant and it drives me crazy. Not all office buildings are like this though. Let's look at the Bullitt Center in Seattle. It's an office building, so you wouldn't think there would be much room for architectural creativity or beauty, but in these images, you can see the functional materials and the coming together of various structural elements. Wood is used to carry vertical and horizontal loads. Concrete is used as mass for compression. Steel is used in tension to tie together the building's joints. Down to the physics of the materials. They are used as they should be and therefore don't have to be hidden. Nerd! As another example, the typical single-family house. This is more of a personal preference, but brick facades over vinyl siding. There's a textural, tactile, human element to a brick as opposed to siding. And the concept of bricklaying and building with blocks is familiar to us long before we understand things like the fabrication and installment of vinyl siding. Plus, brick serves all the purposes of siding and then some, yet siding is so often just slapped on top of a brick building facade. Pointless. If you can invoke that deeper connection between the human and the building that they're in, that's where the beauty lies. I'll share with you guys a few out-in-the-world examples of material honesty. These aren't necessarily perfect examples, but they have noticeably simple and straightforward elements to them. The Chalet Semois in France. This is a renovation in France near Switzerland. Minimal wood all around, the light color of the wood, the comforting rhythm of the planks. It's charming, it's humble, and it allows natural light to fill the space. Thermevals in Switzerland. This is an iconic building known for its use of local limestone. In this natural spa complex, the inherent texture of the limestone is on constant display. It's the primary material used throughout. It serves as structure, atmosphere, a natural light vessel, and artistic statement piece. It hides nothing and has nothing to hide. The Nosenko Cafe, Vietnam. The material choice of bamboo allows for the technique specific to that material. In this case, this vertical weaving of the wood. I mean, stunning. It creates these gorgeous architectural moments without additional embellishment or effort. The Rosana residence in Mexico. The part that jumps out at me is, again, the structural bamboo, and especially the corrugated metal roof. Again, not hidden. And the sound of rain on a metal roof, too. Many of us know it and love it. Engaging the senses. It's unapologetically simple. If you want to research or look up more examples of material honesty, a couple architects that do this pretty consistently would be Tadao Ando and Peter Zumthor. Tadao Ando is famous for his use of concrete and natural light, and Peter Zumthor is just great at material all around. He's actually the one that designed the Thermae balls. Material honesty makes architecture and construction easier to wrap your mind around and just less intimidating to think about if you're not surrounded by all these synthetic man-made materials. It's also easier to see how the different parts of the building come together as opposed to just seeing a building that's wrapped and covered and smoothed over with no idea of how it was constructed. When a building is only the essentials, it starts to speak to the people inside. It shows its process, and through that character and personality, it starts to tell a story that can't really be told if it looks the same as everything else. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and let me know what your thoughts are on this. I love having discussions about this kind of thing and hearing different thoughts and opinions on architecture and design. And since I've mostly been confined to my apartment for the last couple months, any interaction with the outside world is desperately welcome. Desperately. So I have the laptop with my script sitting down here by the desk, and that's why. So that way I can just look at it. Look at the camera. Material. What does that say? That doesn't make any sense.